this zip tie mess? What kind of jamonkey? We have compression Maiden run. We have spark pointed at a tree. Let's not regret this. We're going for it. All right, coming back around to doing a little bit of work on the Blaster. I actually have a well going in today, so apologies for all the racket. So little bit of vacation time for a little bit as I answer questions and stay away from the noise. While they're doing that for a little bit, got a little bit to do on the Blaster here. I've been kind of waiting to do. Gonna tube the tires. So these tires, they were sitting flat, weren't holding air, and you see they got this crack in here. When I put pressure to it, I get little bits of leaks in lousy places. The long term, we are gonna put new rims on here, new tires, but for right now, I just wanna get up and get rolling. So I'm gonna tube them. Now, one thing I've learned is before I put these tubes in, put some air in them. You know, grab your compressor, put some air in. One of these tubes was leaking around here. This tube, now I've taken the valve out because I need to squish this down, pop the bead and put this one in, but this one is leaking around the seat, so I got to do this guy again. Tool I use for popping the seal with my drill here on a 3/4 inch socket. This guy, the XB455, works really pretty well. Spin them down flat here, wedge it in underneath, cinch this down, which sets it, and then put your drill on the top, puts the pressure down. Don't put it too tight, because if you put it too tight, this foot will actually get caught up on the bead and you'll break this foot. So, you know, just enough to get under the lip there. On the way down, watch and make sure you're actually pulling off the bead and your foot isn't caught and getting ready to snap off. And you'll walk this around 3 or 4 times and the bead will be off. And that's that. So I've got to, I'm gonna do this one because I know this is good. And then I gotta come back around and see if I can patch wherever the leak is somewhere around this valve stem. Kind of funny, but I'm forcing some water out of the inside of this tire. So I took both of the nuts off the stem here, pressed it in. I'll use both of these to keep this tight. I've put the valve back in and I've put this up to 10 psi and you can see it has, for the most part, settled back on the bead. It's not on the bead on this side. I'm gonna let it sit for a while. Hindsight, what I should have done is put some grease or some lube around the lip just to make it a little easier to pop on, because I don't want to put a ton of pressure into these tires. But you know, we'll get it. We'll put a little more pressure in once everything has settled out, and then we'll have this chassis as a roller again. Oh, any guesses on how deep they're gonna have to go to give me a well? So I just pulled the other liner out. I don't know why everything came out milky white in a liquid here. But what I found out is I had put this tube in upside down, so the valve was pulling to the other side, which was causing a leak. So you see valve stems on this side of the rim should go in this way. I had it like that and it was just pulling this the other way, causing a leak. So putting some air in here, this is fine. I'm going to deflate it, put it in the right way, and then we should have 2 tires. All right, coming back around to the inside today, we're gonna do the top end. We've got to do our spacer plate and gaskets because we have the 3mm stroker, and we need a jug. And this jug is going to need, yeah, you see that down in there, a little bit of rusting. We're gonna have to go through this a little bit to clean it up before we put it on. Guys, and I gotta clean this gasket off the bottom here. There's a gasket stuck on here. This is not OEM. There's no YS1, YS2 stamped here. I do not know the origin of this head. So we're going to do a flex hone, ball hone, some 10W40, always hone with a little bit of oil in there. This hone is sized for the Blaster, you know, for piston sizes in and around that 68mm stock. Use my finger and smear it. Nasty. That was just 3 slow passes. I'm gonna wipe it down, see what it looks like. All oily right now. There's a little bit of vertical striation on this cylinder. I don't see any aluminum transfer or any piston transfer. But I am going to go another 3 or 4 passes on here, nice and slow, to finish getting that crisscross hash. That's looking pretty good. You do notice there's a little ding right there, you know, from the former piston exploding. But this is cleaning up really nice. I have a Wiseco 68mm piston, new rings, arrow points to exhaust, in case anything flies. I don't want it going in the bob of the motor. I've already opened this bottom enough. Alright, so on these rings, one side has a letter stamped, and that's the top. So So these two rings have an up, and if I bring the camera around here, there's pins in this piston. There's a pin here and a pin here. Two-stroke rings don't rotate like four-stroke rings. So one ring's gonna be fixed and the other ring's gonna be fixed. I think you can see right there, there's a pin, and on the other, at the upper, there's a pin there. And to put these on, I'm just gonna start it. Not using a spreader or anything, and just carefully walking it around. Like so. Rings are on. Now I'm going to come back to the head. This I'm going to wash out with soapy water. I do not want any of the honing grit or anything in here when this goes on, because that honing grit will just continue to hone and wreck the top end. So this is going through the parts washer, warm soapy water. This is going to be made clean, clean, clean. Just wash this in warm soapy water. My rag is coming out clean, so we'll finish drying this off, and then we're going to we're going to run it. I'm going to call out something here on this refresh. You see this vertical striation. After honing, if I run my finger on here, there are little dings and dimples I can feel. Beautifully smooth here, but when this piston blew up a little bit. What does that mean? Well, we're gonna find out, right? So on a refresh, getting off on the trails, can we run reliable? Okay. This is not going to be a top performance top end. A little funny right now because we're mixing parts in here. 3mm stroker, Wiseco piston, and I'm daring to put that in a not perfect jug. It's not perfect, but I wasn't going for perfect. So I just had to flip over my gaskets with the label up. The thicker part of this gasket down here overlap down in, and then left a gap here, and you couldn't get it wrong, because when you went to put the sleeve on, you couldn't get the sleeve to seat all the way down in. So just to kind of call out there. While we're here, going to come back around to doing the block off. We had discovered that there was no block off kit here. The oil injection was deleted, but we had a wide open hole. We had a wide open hole from the top here right through and then down the lower motor. So we have two things. We have a Vitos block off kit, and we have HPM Powersports caps. So these caps going in here, the gap up here, and then ultimately there's another one for my oil filter. Okay, we're gonna get these two pulled out, and is the original OEM head from all that piston damage, and it just pockmarked up everything up here. I'm not going to throw this out because it's OEM, and this could be rechambered for higher compression, so there's still some value here if I want to go to higher performance. We're going to set this off to the side. This one is another OEM 2XJ Yamaha stamped, but nice and smooth in here. Nice clean gasket surface. Actually marked that it came off a 95. I am gonna go take this through the parts washer for a little bit though and get all this grime off before I put it on, just because it'd be nice to have it clean. Alright, that's a lot cleaner. Got some of that carbon buildup out of there, so happy with how that looks. Hey, what do you think, pupper? What are you thinking? New copper washers. All right, I'm going to pause for a moment, put the motor out of the way, because we're going to disassemble the OEM carb, rebuild it. We're going to put a Torx delete in, so we'll have an idle adjust here. We'll get rid of that whole brick, whole cable. This is the side, choke side, where the Torx delete will go, so we'll end up filing this flat so we can get that in there. But let me move some things around, fire up my ultrasonic cleaner, and go from there. All right, got a rebuild kit from Freedom Country ATV. Let's break this down, get it into the ultrasonic for a while. Clean it up. Alright, here we go. Choke side. I'm going to pull this down so that our new idle screw will be able to sit down in there flush. This, of course, fills the carb body with aluminum shavings. Hence, we got to do a full clean after this. What a mess. Gonna hit it with a little carb cleaner and we're gonna drill it. All right, drilled through. Put some threads on it now. This is an M6 by 0.75 pitch tap. And we're gonna go slow. We don't want to snap this off in the carb. This is a beautiful OEM carb. I will say sometimes I put blue Loctite on these threads just to do a little better job on seal for air leakage. And if you can see down in here, here's why we gotta do all this cleanup. There's all that aluminum shaving down in there. What I am going to do is see about this seating down in. I need to see it pop out into the throttle body right there to be able to move the slide up and down. That should be just fine. And you see how loose this is? I should be able to use this nut here to lock it in place. In my experience though, I would add some blue Loctite to this bolt to really make sure it doesn't walk out on you. Okay, I'm gonna blast this with carb cleaner. We'll put it in the ultrasonic. Also notice, I don't know if you can see that, all the rust in the fuel line here. It's gonna be good to get this thing all cleaned up. All right, this thing's been heating. We're gonna crank it to 65 Celsius. Fresh liquid, that is tap water combined with Master Stage's Clean 2020. And this is probably 1 parts cleaning fluid to 10 parts water. Doing pretty good. There's still some caked down stuff, some cake stuff. Really, I ought to go through this with the parts washer, loosen that up. So I'm gonna do that, and then we've got to blow this thing clean. All right, that's a beautiful looking carb now. Been through the ultrasonic, been through the parts washer, rinsed off in warm soapy water, and then I took the air compressor and blew out all of the orifices. So let's start rebuilding this. So this is the fuel float mechanism, and I'm going to replace, because what happens on these old ones is these rubber gaskets here get corroded, at which point, you know, when your floats float up, shut off the fuel by pushing the needle up. Even though you have a good seat within here, the fuel still leaks around the gasket. So while we're in here and we have it, we are going to replace that. Just press it in. It is time to put the motor back into the ATV. Alright guys, getting closer. I may have made a mistake here because I built the motor without putting the clutch armature in, and what I'm finding now is I can't slip this down in with the rod in the way. My hope is I don't have to split the motor again. I think I can open up the clutch side, take clutch plates out so I can slide that rod and slip this down in, The other option would be to grind the end here to a little bit of a bevel so I can pound it and slip it in, but I don't think I like that, so it's gonna slow me down getting to a first start today. But I need to work on the back end. You remember the OEM shock was a pogo stick. Oh my goodness, ready for the rebound? So we're getting rid of this. Sitting next to it here is a shock from a Z400. And as I look at it, really, well, let's look at them both in the same orientation here. Eye hole to eye hole. It's a touch longer. I mean, it's probably the width of the eye hole, maybe a centimeter longer. But this is a resi shock, so I can adjust it. And we're also going to be using a bushing kit to see about getting this to fit. So I'm going to see if I can get this fit up on the rear now, take a break from the motor, because we weren't going to ride this with this thing just being completely blown out. All right, so also from HPM Powersports, this is the bushing kit. And I believe all of this goes up on the top. I may still need to do some work on the bottom. If I'm right, the bushing kit goes in, secures the top. But if I look down here, I got a lot of room for play down here. This could be a real stack washer job. Here's the OEM pin that came out. This is the one that actually came with the shock. So we're gonna see what we can do here. They're pressing in pretty tough. You know, I did get some oil in here. So let's see, I'm gonna grab a pair of vice grips and see if I can clamp a little bit and squeeze them in. So I'm real close with a pair of vice grips. So, you know, alternatives here. I could pop these back out from the outside, go through with my air tool and just deburr just a little bit to make it fit a little better. And that's probably going to be what to do. Just about there. Guys, that's not bad. It's a nice snug mount. Just need a little builder's touch with the air Dremel in the frame. I may go back and remove the washer on each side because there's not an, I mean, the nut isn't biting all the way. I'll give some thought to that. All right, a little bit of a follow-up here. Spun everything around to get the clutch actuator in. Now I thought I was gonna have to take the clutch out so I could get the push rod in here out of the way to push this down in. Ultimately, this was all the way in, and just, you know, I had to leave space for the spring and all that. So none of that work was needed. This sat down in right where it needed to go. I just hadn't noticed. So now we're all connected here. I did have the clutch cover off because I did think I had to move the rod. Nice thing is when I pulled the clutch lever and I activated it, I could see the plates spread, so I knew my clutch was working. So now I've come to a leak test here, and the idea on this is to put 5 psi in here, just a little bit. We don't want to do a lot. We don't want to blow out our seals. We want to get, you know, 4 or 5 psi in here, and hopefully it'll hold for 4 or 5 minutes or so. So I've put this under pressure. First I had a leak in my junction on my little tool here, and I had a burr on here that was, you know, had a leak, weird plastic burr, sanded that off. Now I still have a leak. I'm gonna put a little air to it and then show you around the reed box. Here we go. Look at that leak. So I am losing air all over the place there. That's important because we're gonna wanna deal with that. Take the reed box back off, take a look at those gaskets, figure out what's going on. Otherwise, an air leak like that, certainly leaning things out, but you can get runaway, or I want to say that I've had runaway motors because of an air leak on there where just suddenly things catch and it just revs to the moon. So if I'm right, put in the comments if I am or I'm not. That I want to fix. So right now I'm going to take off my little leak down tester, also from HPM Powersports. Thank you guys. and I'm going to take a look at that reed box. And I think there's a reed spacer in here, so I got to take a look at that. But we are getting close. All right, guys. 10 minutes later, I ended up doing Yamaha Bond, the fuel resistant, on both of the gaskets here. No more bubbles. We're holding pretty good. I mean, it is ticking down. We're at 2.5. It's been about 2 minutes. I think we're in a pretty good place. Certainly don't have any big leaks. Well, now. Boom. Put our kicker on. Gotta get some oil in here. We're getting close. Obviously, if you're doing a leak down test, make sure you have a block off plate on here. I have some extra washers because some of the post was sticking out behind here, so I couldn't get a good seal. This also came with the kit. And you notice I have gloves hanging all over these things here. That's so I don't reach in and bump my head on anything there. Yeah. So the rear, I've got to drill some washers. I've got to deal with this gap here. I have a drill press, but I don't have a large enough drill bit, so I have some drill bits on order. Largest drill bits I have go to 1/2 inch, and this is going to have to be a touch above to get the bolt through. Oh boy, look at this now. I might have to keep thinking this hole is clearly smaller than this hole. And this is my bolt. Yeah. I'm going to end up having to put this through the drill press as well to get this Z400 shock to work. So I'll have to unbolt it up top, which I've been planning to do because with the washers behind here, I just don't get a whole lot of bite on this nut. So this will come back off. Still yet to be seen if this will fit in around these stock plastics or if anything needs to be cut. My understanding is this will fit without modification, but I haven't seen it yet. So stay tuned, we'll figure that out. Is all this zip tie mess? How have I not noticed that before? What kind of jamoke? All that because you lost the bolt? Come on now. A little bit, and I left these things out. The squirrels have been all over them, and now I'm left to wonder that I really only have one bolt, or did it blow around and I lose it? Oh boy, who knows. So here's the stock shock, And you'll notice it's wider than the KFX, or excuse me, the Z400 shock here. So I will have to do some spacers. This is a 1/2 inch bit. I think it's going to be just right to get that through, because I don't want it walking around wiggle room. You know, frankly, I'm probably going to start with one size smaller, maybe 7/16. Hit that first, and then I may, if I can, figure something out to drill some washers or use some different washers. Those will be spacers down in here so the shock doesn't walk around. And then up here we're all set with the HPM bushings. So let's get this shock positioned, drilled out, see if we can get it mounted. Then let's do a compression test, and unless something else is wrong, we should have spark. We should be able to fire. Ooh. Alright, it was walking all over my drill press, so I ended up doing this by hand. That's 9/16. That's what we're going to go with. Alright guys, here we go. Z400 shock installed. I took the washers out from either side here, and I got good bite now on this locking nut, so I'm happy with that. Underneath here, this is the OEM Blaster mounting bolt, put right through. I did have to drill the Z400 shock to 1/2 inch, and that seems to be just right. And then you'll see the gap isn't quite right, so I have 2 big washers on either side to kind of keep everything nice and tight. Let's look at the plastic fit up, because I know on some of the other shocks where the reservoir is off to the side, you have to cut the plastics. Let's see if we have to cut the plastics with a Z400 shock. No cutting required. Look at that. Screw holes lining up. Airbox hose. That's going to be fine when I connect that. Take my ratchet strap off, put my wheels on. I'm going to call that confirmed. No need to cut plastics for a Z400 shock on a Blaster. Alright, so let me take the ratchet strap off, get the wheels on. I'll bolt those plastics on. I'll do a compression test, and then we're going to try and fire this thing. I should call out this though. Airbox lid, reservoir is in the way for the OEM lid. I wouldn't be able to quite crank that down. There's just too much of a gap. So we'll have to see how this runs without a lid. Leans it out. I don't know. I don't know how that'll run without the lid, the extra air and all that. We're running the factory carb. Haven't changed jetting. We have the 3mm stroker in there. But we're gonna have to pay attention. All right, let's see if we can kick it over and see what kind of compression's in here. Well, there's 100 anyway. I'm not kicking it hard. That's plenty good spark there. All right, we have compression, we have spark. I'm gonna put the tank on here, give it a little bit of fuel, point it at a tree, so if the clutch plates are grabby, it doesn't try and take off, but we're going for it. Petcock. Dripping fuel. Always something. Bowl's full. It's not running out, but I gotta deal with it. I gotta do something about that. Let me just try and tighten it a little bit. Alright, well, we may need a new fuel petcock or rebuild kit or something. It turns off okay, but as you turn the fuel on, it leaks out the side there. Probably got a rubber gasket or something to shot, but we do have enough fuel in the bowl to try and kick it over, so let's get set up here. Alright guys, this one's fighting me a little bit. I kicked it over for, I don't know, a couple of minutes or so, and it tried to start once and then that was it. So I popped the tank off, pulled the plug out again, made sure we got good spark. I compression tested it again, and it's coming at 75, 80, so, I mean, I had 100 when I first did the test, so I'm also not sure. Maybe I flooded it out, so I let it sit, went and made a cup of coffee. So I'm going to come back out now and see if it'll kick over. I'm a little concerned about that compression. That's just, it's low to me. And I know this motor has taken a lot to get back together with all the damage in the cases and doing the JB weld and all that. So I don't know, we're gonna see though. We have good spark. We have enough compression. We have enough compression. Misses today. All my coffee cups are in the wash. I did just notice something after I put the clutch on. I never torqued this nut down. See that? It's finger tight. That can absolutely hinder my compression. I got to go around and test everything, touch everything again, make sure everything is to the specs it's supposed to be here. All right, cylinder head nuts 20 foot-pounds, base nuts 18 foot-pounds, mounting bolts, crankcase cover. All right, let's go check these. 20, and 18. I think 17 is going to be where I'm going to stop. Head bolts, spec, 17 foot-pounds versus 20 on the sides. I've got about 17 out of the 18 it calls for. You can smell fuel under the plug, so we're getting fuel through the carburetor. Never seen this one run. We could have carburation issues. Gonna set the idle all the way in here. I'm excited now. So now that it's firing up, idling, I got to go through some break-in cycles on it. Got to recheck everything as well. But I'm going to throw my helmet on and ride around a little bit. Reason being is for the break-in, I don't want to just let it idle. I want to get it to up, move through the RPM range. So not riding hard, but up, down. Do that 2 or 3 times over the course of 3, 4, 5 minutes, things like that, and let it cool down. So yeah, let's go ride it. Fuel has stopped leaking too. Got about 1.5 inches slack on that. We're going to pay attention as we break things in. All right. Oh, here we go, guys. Maiden run. Oh, there we go. Let's not regret this. Second gear.